Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's Wednesday show on the Higher Self-Development page and my YouTube page, Sage Oneness. Tonight, we're speaking about epilepsy and spirituality, something that is really, really close to my heart. I'm very excited. You're going to see it in me and you're going to hear it in me. Very excited and have a lot of passion for this subject. Both of them, the spirituality connecting to spirituality as well. And then we have the lovely Amunet Ra that's going to be coming on very shortly. And she's going to be sharing her experiences with epilepsy and the experiences connected to spirituality. Now, we know that epilepsy is massive. There's so many different forms of epilepsy. So what I'm going to do, like I did in the previous shows that I've done, anything that we miss out and we don't speak about, what I would do is tomorrow when I do a recap and repost the show, I will put some more information on and I will put some links on for you guys. But tonight, we're going to just be free. We're going to speak, share our experiences and bring in the spiritual side to it. So I'm going to introduce Amunet Ra Kells. So Amunet Ra is an elder end-of-life care planner, a deaf end-of-life doula. She's worked in various communities living with multiple physical learning differences for over 20 years. That's showing our age. And epilepsy advocate for young women. She has a lot of experiences with regards to epilepsy, not just personal, but in the working environment as well. And we're going to be touching the medical side of it to a certain degree, but we're really coming from the spiritual side. So are you ready, guys? I am going to introduce Amunet Ra. Hello.
Hey, welcome. Peace and love, everyone.
Yes, peace and love. What I didn't say, which I'm going to say now, I really wanted it on here, that anyone that doesn't know, Amunet Ra is family. So she's not just a soul sister. She's not just, you know, a friend, which she is actually my family as well. So we've come a long way with our condition with epilepsy. I mean, over 20 years of experiencing epilepsy and going through a journey and connecting to the spiritual side to it. So we know that we can't do it in an hour. No way can we do a subject like this in an hour. So we're going to do what we can. We do have questions here. If anyone wants to put up any questions that you have along within the hour, please do. And we will read it out, the ones that we see. And we're just going to be free and have an hour speaking about epilepsy and spirituality. So Amunet, I'm going to start with you. Now I want to start with this question. When did epilepsy start? And when did you start to identify that it was epilepsy? But when did it start for you? Like, what age were you when epilepsy started?
Okay. For me, epilepsy started in my late teens. So I was around 17, just getting over puberty. And that's when I had my first major seizure. And the first epilepsy seizure usually is a major one because you've never experienced anything like that before. So I was around 17 years old when I found myself waking up in a hospital bed. And the conditions around that was, I was very traumatized at that time because my parents had just separated. So there was like a pull and tug of my energy. My energy was pulled by my dad and pulled by my mum. So the energy pull affected my brainwaves and frequency. And I ended up having a major epileptic seizure. That was my first experience of epilepsy.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you was having what sort of epilepsy was you having?
At that time, the first seizure I had was a major tonic clonic seizure. So it was a convulsion. It was an actual convulsion where I was totally unconscious. And when I recovered, I was badly bruised, in a terrible state, had no awareness of what had happened at that time.
And because that was your first seizure, did they put you on medication straight away?
No, they didn't. They put it down to a one-off. They said, oh, this must be a one-off seizure and you're going to be fine. It's okay. It was just a trauma experience that had brought it on, because people are entitled to have at least one seizure in their lifetime. Most people will experience, whether it's in the end of life or the beginning of life, if you have some trauma going on in your life, you're likely to experience a seizure or a type of seizure. So for me, it was a build-up of trauma that it expressed itself in a seizure. So at that time, they'd said, we're not going to label her as an epileptic because it's a one-off and she's been through a lot of trauma, so she's going to be fine. But lo and behold, I was not fine. That was the beginning of my epileptic journey. And before that, I had not experienced anything to that degree of my body convulsing. However, in saying that, my whole life, I've had experiences where I have felt misplaced or displaced in this reality. So my whole life, I've always had bouts of wandering off in my mind. Like my mind would wander into certain places that was unknown or unfamiliar to myself. I would find my imagination, what they would call it, going into places, or I would say now, planets and dimensions and realms of the unknown. I'd be like, wow, oh my God, where am I? What's going on here? And then somebody would like wake you out of your you know, where you were and bring you back. And I would say, now ground you. What are you doing? Where have you gone to? You're not paying attention. Pay attention.
Daydreaming.
Daydreaming. And then later on, I got to know that these were called absent seizures.
And we're going to get onto that. We will get onto that, because there is a difference between the absent seizures and the full-blown seizures as well. But just in case people are coming on that don't really know anything about epilepsy, what is epilepsy? In your own words, what is epilepsy, how you would see it? And then I can say how I see it.
Epilepsy is a condition whereby in our brain, we have a number of neurons in our brain. And neurotypically, we have conscious access to a certain amount of brain neurons that are functioning consciously on a day-to-day basis. What happens is when you have epilepsy, or the condition that is labeled epilepsy, you have an unconscious access to certain brain neurons that are fired through electrical activity in your brain waves and your frequency. So you have a disturbance coming into your body and into your brain that interferes and fires off other neurons within your brain chemistry.
Yeah, for me, definitely, I see the same. You just used words that I won't be able to pronounce.
It's really difficult to use those words because we see it in a totally different way. We don't see it in terms of biology or academia. We see it in terms of spirituality and the feeling and the sensation that it brings. So sometimes for us epileptic non-neurotypicals to put it into words, it can be a little bit, you know.
For me, I would see it in the creative side of when our brain is functioning on of a level of severe electricity. And that electricity, it's like, for me, it's like a bomb ticking. For whatever reason, that bomb's ticking, and then that bomb needs to release, and that energy needs to be able to expand somehow, and that's where the electricity is explode and released in different parts of our brain, and within the different parts of our brain, that will determine what sort of seizures we're having, and will determine the side effects as well. So later on, we'll go down the road of side effects. Also, hi guys, we've got people here, so we'll say hello to Hotep. Yeah, we've got Hotep here, we've got Mia, we've got Vanessa. So thank you so much. We've got higher self-development, so that's Angelina. Thank you so much.
Hi, Angelina.
So yeah, so it's weird that you should say that about your epilepsy. For mine, it started at 11. And mine started, I had sleep epilepsy first. So my ones were in my sleep. And that made so much sense, me getting older, because I used to travel a lot in my sleep when I was younger. So before 11, I would travel anyway, spiritually, in my sleep. But my epilepsy started with sleep epilepsy first. So it was sleep epilepsy. And I was having it before my family realized, because it was just one night, like the bed was shaking a lot on my sister's wall, and they were like, what's going on? Why is the bed shaking so much? And they went into my room, and I was having a seizure. And my sister said she did hear that from before, and she just thought it was someone upstairs or someone making noise, and she just didn't come in to see what was going on. So I was having it from before, but I never used to have it in the daytime or anything. It just was in my sleep. And just like yourself, they don't give you medication straight away. So they said, oh, it must be a one-off. You know, it could be that I started the time of the month. So I started my period at 11 as well. So they said it could be that. And they left it to see what would happen. And then from there, I started to have more. And then it shifted from nighttime to any time. So when did yours start shifting for you to start getting medication?
I think what has happened was, it's a long time ago now, sis. It's a long time ago. But if I can recall, I started having a lot of seizures, like a lot. Once I had the first one, I started having a succession of regular ones. So I was in hospital a lot of the time. And then I think after the third time, then I started going for brain scans. And it's so strange because every time I had a brain scan, nothing showed up until I had a very bad seizure that led to a coma-induced state, a state that's called status epilepticus, if I can pronounce it.
Yeah.
Get it right?
Yeah, that is it.
Where you're just constantly seizuring. You're just constantly having fits after fits, and that can last for hours. And then when that happened, it actually showed up on a brain scan, because my normal brain activity was fine. But when that one happened, that big one, that's when they saw there's some kind of weird activity going on with your brain frequency and your brain waves and patterns. Then they said, let's introduce some medication, because now this is becoming dangerous. It's actually becoming life-threatening. It's becoming dangerous. And I did have, at that time, a mini stroke, a TIA. And so I was really very ill at that time, very, very sick. And I really couldn't leave the house at that time. It was like, if I walked from my bed to the toilet, I might have a seizure. If I walked somewhere, I'm going to end up back in hospital. So at that time, I started to take it a little bit more seriously. Bearing in mind, I was still very young. So still kind of very rebellious, you know. So that was the time that I was actually diagnosed. And then came the succession of medications and brain scans and consultations and etc.
Okay. So do you feel, or did you feel back then, that the information that was given to you around epilepsy, even now, some people do not know what epilepsy really is. So do you think that I know you were 17 going on 18 by then. Do you think the information from the doctors and the consultants were given to you for you to at least have some form of clear understanding of what was going on at the beginning?
I don't think, no. At that time, being the age that I was, and obviously going through teenage puberty stages, no. But I was lucky because I had nurses in my family. So my mum's a nurse. I had a lot of aunties in my family that were nurses. So that kind of helped to give me some kind of like rationality that, you know, I'm okay. I'm going to be all right. You know, this is something that's happened, and they were able to explain it on a much better and more practical level than the jargon of the consultants and the doctors. In fact, if I'm totally honest, when I went to appointments, they weren't really speaking to me. They were speaking to my mum. So it was about how does she behave or what brings on her seizures. They never really addressed me at that time. Did you find that when you went to your appointment?
I definitely found that I was so confused. I was blinded to the information. I couldn't hear, I couldn't see, and I couldn't think, because for one, it was just jargon, words that they were saying, and two, it was just like, okay, you have this thing where you shake now and you black out, you know, and that's what I got from it. And then I had to have so much wirings, and like yourself, I was always in hospital, and I've got a condition that I don't know nothing about, you know, and I was younger than you, and my parents didn't know nothing about it. There was no nurses in our family where there was no, but what was there, I don't know about you, but what was there was just constant fear. That's all that was there. Constant fear that, oh my gosh, she's going to die if she has a seizure. So that's all that I knew. The constant fear was so strong that that's the only energy that I knew, just to be fearful, nothing more. So that's really interesting, because when I speak to people now that's at the first stages of having epilepsy, they do say the same thing. They don't really know a lot about it. They might get a leaflet and stuff like that, but what's in the leaflet, they're not really connecting with it. It might say what you should do after you have a seizure. It might say what is a seizure. They might put in there other aspects of what epilepsy is. But for someone that's actually experiencing something in their body, I'm not blaming anyone here, because when you don't experience it yourself, you know, how can you really explain it, even if you are a professional? You know, it's, you know, that's just how it goes. So I can understand that. Did you find that being an advocate, the epilepsy advocate, did you find that people were saying that to you?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. It's like you can't really understand the medical terms that they use for epilepsy. So even if you do your own research and you look and you research epilepsy, the terms that are used, the language used, it's really based for medical professionals. It's not for your everyday person. So as you said, unless you've really experienced it having a seizure, it's really difficult to put into words and describe the feeling or the sensation, which is why the spiritual side of it is so important. Because when we're talking in spiritual terms, we can talk very plainly. Everything is simplified. You don't have to think about, oh, what does it do in your brain? What part does it affect? It's the experience that you're actually having in the moment that is more important.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that 100%. And we've experienced that as well. I want to ask you, so this is over 20 odd years now. So up to today, where are you at now with epilepsy, with the seizures? How do you see it? Where are you at with it? How do you connect with the energy now?
Well, It's been a long journey. It's been a long epilepsy journey of knowing my body, knowing my brain in my own way, not in anybody else's way, but in my own way. So where I'm at in my journey right now is a place of owning epilepsy as a part of my everyday life. So where when I was younger, because there's so much stigma around the condition, now I'm able to say I'm epileptic and it's fine. You know, before I would have had a lot of shame around it, thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm going to drop down any minute and have a seizure. What do the people around me know what to do? But because I have very good self-care management around it, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I just know if it's going to occur, if it's going to happen, what I need to do for myself to get myself into a safe space for my own being. So I think where before when I was younger, I would be worried, like the fear of dying, the fear of like, who's going to resuscitate me if this fit gets too bad, which you know it can do if it's a really bad tonic clonic seizure. Now I just know I can stop, I can intervene, my own spirit can intervene before it gets to that level, before it gets to the heightened level of where I'm going to have a tonic clonic. I know what to do, what measures to take to relax myself, calm down, and allow it to pass by instead.
Yeah, I love that. I've got so many questions for you, and we haven't even gone to the questions that we have here.
I've got some questions for you as well, you know. I've got some questions for you.
Oh my God, an hour's not going to be enough. What I wanted to say to you is, for myself on this journey, I learned that my epilepsy was connected to stress, 100% stress. So I was able to recognize that as a young adult and put something in place. So where I'm at today with my energy force, with my epilepsy, is that I don't have no full-blown seizures or anything like that no more. I'm not on medication. However, I feel it in my soul. If I was to go back to that life, the life again of chaos or stress, any form of stress, I know it's going to appear. So my energy tells me it hasn't gone. The energy has just changed because I've changed my lifestyle and I've changed my energy. Right. And once I understood that, it's allowed me to not need medication. It's like I'm medicating myself through my lifestyle. That was my medication that I always needed, but I didn't realize that being young. And when you have any form of scans and things like that, and they can't find nothing on your brain, then really you're left to find out what's going on. Yeah. Because all they do is give you medication, and then you're left with medication. And if that medication don't work, they give you another one. And if that don't work, they give you another one. They don't go to the spiritual side or even the healthy nutrition side as much. They do a bit now. I must admit, they do it now. But in our day, it wasn't really there. So for me to identify that and said, I need to change my life. I need to change. And when I say to people, I don't do stress, especially now, I don't. And I mean like no form of stress whatsoever. I don't argue in my relationships. I don't do arguments. I don't do stress. This is the reason why. Because for my epilepsy, my medication is to be de-stressed. That's my medication, and that's how I choose to live. And it works very well. I love it. I love being this way and having no stress in my life, allowing people to have their own journey and their own whatever they've chosen for their life here on earth that has nothing to do with me, and I'm not taking that on. So for you, did you get to have an understanding, or do have an understanding of what, not what your trigger is, but what leads to that energy wavelength for you?
Yeah, I think for me, because I have a lot of complex, what they call complex partial seizures. My
What are they?
triggers.
What are these? What ones are those ones?
The complex partial
seizures,
yeah, they're like a combination of absent seizures, jerking, twitches, involuntary tics, and body movements. So for me, it could vary. It's very complex. So it could vary from anything from what you're saying, stress to excitement to my environment to overstimulation in my environment. If there's too much electrical activity going on, if there's too much bright light, it could be something as simple as the TV screen or the frequency of the radio to, you know, an artificial light bulb. There's been times where I felt like really drifty and ungrounded, and I've had to check my environment and say, there's something different in here. What is different? What is more artificial? And it's been something simple like a light bulb. Nobody would know. They would think, I'm just changing a light bulb. But if it's not the right light bulb, if it's got ultraviolet rays and it's too bright, that's going to trigger my seizures, you know? Yeah. So we have different triggers. Some can be more complex, but when you get to know yourself and what your triggers are, you can like see it quicker, where others might be just like, well, it's just a thing. It's nothing. For us, with our brain conditions, it could be a major thing. In fact, it could be a life or death thing at times, you know? Yeah. So I understand where you're coming from when you talk about you're not taking on any stress in any form whatsoever. That is stopping straight away. For me, it's a very complex combination of various different things, a lot of different contributing factors.
Yeah. And that's why we have to really put out there that anyone else that has seizures and has epilepsy is going to be in different forms. And that's why I wanted to share this tonight, because me and Amunet, we have different experiences, but coming and speaking about the same similar energy force, you know, but it's coming to us in different ways. My one definitely was just stress. I was able to say, okay, well, if I don't do the stress experiences, then we'll see what happens.
And it'll be okay. You'll be right.
Yeah, and it worked. And I was like, okay. And then I was able to come off my medication. And then I was able to do certain things. And I was like, okay, this is working. Okay, you know, and meditation for me, fantastic. But we're going to speak about that later on, of what things we can use. But meditation to me, that's my other baby. That's my other medication for me. Yeah. Okay, so what is before we go on to the sheets, what is the different epilepsy names that we know of? Just for people, again, that don't know. I know there's loads, so we can't go through all of them.
Actually, there's about 44 that we know of. There's 44 that we know of. But I'm sure there's so many more. And what we're discovering, with new science comes new information, and with new technology and brain scanning and things like that. So there's more syndromes, more epilepsy-related syndromes coming out, even now, up to today. So from our Victorian days, when it was called the madness, you know, the crazy syndrome, it's now being recognized more of a learning disability or a neurological condition, which is actually for us now, because if this was back in the days, we would have been locked in some asylum somewhere, in an institution, going under lobotomies, experiments. So we have to give thanks. But there is, to answer the question, there are so many syndromes. How many do we know of? Because I've done so much work with young people around different forms of epilepsy syndromes. It's actually known as a syndrome now, that it could be something so subtle. It could be from anything from an absence to a tonic clonic, to an impartial seizure, to a partial seizure, to a full-blown seizure. And then we have SUDEP, which is really serious, because the SUDEP seizures means when you go, the sleep, it's the sleep epilepsy. But when you go to sleep, you're not likely to wake up. That's how serious that condition is. Like, you could just go sleep, have a succession of seizures and just not wake up, and you would have transitioned in your sleep.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to lead on to the spiritual side of epilepsy. And I'm just going to repeat myself, just in case people that wasn't on here at the beginning, because this is more of a spiritual show, we're going more on the spiritual side of epilepsy. However, tomorrow, when I upload again this episode, this show, for anyone that missed it tonight, I will put in some links for the educational side, if you want to call it that, of epilepsy, just for anyone else that wants a balance. But tonight's going to be more of the spiritual side. So I'm going to start with the first question. Partial and absent seizures. So I've got here a physical feeling, an aura of transitioning into other realms. What do you mean by that? How can we break that down for people listening?
Okay, so a partial absent seizure is when you go into a trance-like state, what mediums would call a trance conscious channel. So you go into a trance-like state where you go into a staring. That's the only way I can describe it. Hope it makes sense. What we might call daydreaming. Now, that could be anything from a couple of seconds to maybe 20 minutes, maybe that long. So in that experience, for me, I can only talk about my own experience. But in that time when I'm experiencing an absent seizure, I can actually feel myself, my spirit drifting out of my body into other realms. And I would say other realms because the images that come to my mind in that time when I'm in that trance state is not planet Earth. It's somewhere completely different. It's another realm with another sky, another atmosphere, another sensation, and other things going on that place that I've actually visited at that time when I'm in a trance. Saying that, my physical being, my body is still here, fully present, doing what it does here, but I'm still like, I'm just dream in a trance. And there's been many people that I'm sure have experienced that. From me.
That I have, So
exactly.
You know I have. You know, and I'll still do that now.
We could do that at any moment.
Part of me. It's not even epilepsy no more. It's just part of me.
Right.
But
we just embrace that. That's just our life. That's how we live.
And when I was younger, before 11, when my seizures really showed itself in epilepsy form, I used to have those senses anyway, in the aura of traveling into other realms. I was used to that. From I was actually can remember thinking from like 3, So I was used to that, and that didn't scare me when I naturally would do it without the energy of the epilepsy. I was okay with that. I was like, okay, I'm going here, and I was okay with that. When it became the energy force of epilepsy, where the seizures would come, how I felt afterwards what caused me the fear. So for me, how I felt after an epilepsy seizure, I would actually feel like I've been dropped back down to earth. Where before, when I go into my dimensions and stuff, I come back, I go in nicely, I come back nicely. Everything's a nice energy. With the epilepsy now, it was like forced coming back down. And I'd literally be in a daze, like, I'm here. I know I'm here, but where am I? The groundingness took longer than when I would naturally just go into that world. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So let me ask you a question. So with these, we're kind of talking about the absences, and the trance-like state. So are you saying that when you experience those trance-like state seizures, you felt that you weren't grounded, or you felt like you were coming in and going out?
Yeah, so I would have different forms. So, I started off having the sleeping epilepsy. So I started off my journey with the sleeping ones, then it changed form. So I would have full-blown ones, I would have absent seizures, I would have staring seizures, and it was the staring seizures when I would stare. So I know it was a different feeling to when I would go into different dimensions and I'm like, oh, I'm here, and and I feel like I've gone somewhere and I've come back. The epilepsy energy was different. And that's what scared me, because, and it's only when I would come back. So when I would come back, it always felt like I've jumped back into my body, and I've jumped back into this world. And that would scare me, because where before 11, remember, I'm not even telling no one I'm traveling. So I'm used to something that no one knows. So I don't have no label or anything, because I'm just doing my own thing. But when the epilepsy came now, it was like, oh, you have epilepsy. It's a condition. Something's wrong with you. Oh, you need medication. So it was like, oh my gosh, that means I shouldn't be traveling then, or this ain't good for me to do that. So my energy changed. My energy actually, shifted because of that. And that's when the fear started to come. So that was my experiences until I got older. And then I got to really gel into the energy, but at the beginning, that I can actually pinpoint, that was where the fear was. Because waking up, I'm like, okay, I'm here. It was a different sensation. It's like pins and needles all over my body, and I have to ground. Well, I didn't even know about grounding back then, but I had to allow my body for the pins and needles all over to find itself. That's all energy, isn't it? Before I can say, okay, I'm back here on this earth. And I don't know about you, but I used to wet myself as well
at the
beginning. Yeah, especially with the night ones and some of the staring ones. I'd find that, I've released myself, because what happens is, and I'm sure you can agree with me with this, some seizures that you have, your whole body gets loosened.
Yeah.
So, it's quite similar to when someone's going through that death transition and their body loosens
the
up.
body starts to release everything, starts to release.
Yeah, and that would happen to me as well. So my whole body would just get released, and then I will wee myself as well. And that does happen with some people that have epilepsy as well. So I experienced that. But then when I got older, that part went, and then I just would have the full-blown ones and stuff like that. So that's really, really interesting.
Okay, let's go on. Just to add to that, it's interesting you should say that, because I think what people will try to understand is that you could have the same label of a seizure, but your experience of it is totally different. So where you say that you felt the feeling of like, I'm out and then I'm in those absence, trance, sleep seizures, I didn't feel that from those ones. I just felt like, oh, I've just walked over there and I'm just walking back. There was never like a feeling of like I'm going somewhere and then I'm being planted back down. It was more like, oh, I've just walking back. I'm here now, and now I'm there, and I've come back again. But the difference was with the tonic clonic seizures, the convulsions was like being shot out into the sky somewhere, and then having to really get back in and ground myself. It's really interesting that we could have the same type of seizure but experience it in totally different ways.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so the next one, I think we've touched on it. So it's tonic clonic seizures being channeled without permission. Now this one I want to break down. Being channeled without permission.
That's a deep
one. You can start. Do you want to start?
Okay. Well, the tonic clonic seizure, if I can get all the words out. The tonic clonic convulsion is literally where, if I can describe it, and I hope I can, as a feeling, the feeling is that you're not in control of any of your bodily functions, your limbs, your face, anything, any limb, any part of your physical being. You're just not in control of it. And it really feels like, well, for me, a force enters into my body that is trying to control it. And the more I try to resist that force, the harder it's going to be for me to recover. So when I first started having the tonic clonic seizures, they were the ones that actually led to the diagnosis, because they became so violent and so aggressive that it totally messed up my brain frequency and pattern. And this is what led to dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and tics, speech tics. I've still got them now, but it's okay. I've accepted them. It's a part of my being. So I would say with the tonic clonic seizures, it feels like a possession. And in my epilepsy journey, one of the things that I did was, went to church to get, rebuked, because, we kind of like fall back on the programs that we already have. So when you're soul searching and you're getting to know yourself, you go through all your programs that you've already been taught. So I kind of turned to church first and thought, well, what's going on? I need help. God's got to save me. Where's Jesus? Like, come on, Jesus, help me. I'm not a bad person. Why is this happening to me? And then you read in the scriptures, it's very clear in the scriptures that, you could be under demonic attack or possession. So I kind of went down that route, went to church, spoke to some pastors, met some beautiful pastors, went through a church journey where I felt like I was possessed, literally, because I couldn't understand why my body was behaving in the way that it was randomly. And then being in church and seeing exorcisms take place where people are being rebuked of demons and they're doing what I do when I have a seizure. It was like, oh my God, am I possessed then? Oh my God, I've got demons or something. So the reason why I would say that, it feels like a possession is because in moments in my journey and growing and moving out of religion and into esoteric schools and spiritual schools, it was presented as you're a channel. You are a channel. You have to gain control of your channel, and you can't allow spiritual entity to come and possess your being if you haven't given permission. So learning that, and that was a long journey. And I'm so blessed because I had so many teachers around me at that time, spiritual teachers, to guide me in the right direction so I could balance it out. And there was a bit of spiritual warfare there, but it's all agreeable now.
And I like that you share that, because it's so different to my journey, but I know that journey exists, and we hear it from so many to say that to have epilepsy, it means this, it means that something needs to come out of you, it's dangerous, it's not good, entities. And for me, I did not have anyone around to even speak to about epilepsy. I just got on with it until I met you, and then we could speak. But I just literally got on. I'm so I can't get my words out. I got on with it. With the connection of dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, I have them all. And when I was younger, when I was showing those signs, I would always lead it back to epilepsy. Oh, it's because of the epilepsy. It's because of the epilepsy. Until I got older, I realized they're all connected. It's all to do with the brain, and it's just depending on what side of the brain's being affected is going to cause us to experience certain so-called conditions that we know of. With regards to being channeled without permission, the only way I can share with you an experience, and this wasn't from me, but this is from my son. So my son has epilepsy as well. He's 21 now. We're going to be 21 in a couple of weeks. And when he used to have his seizures, he used to always say, he used to be frightened straight away before he goes into the seizure. And then he would say, leave me leave me, no, leave me.
I do remember that with George.
Leave me. He would be saying things like someone's trying to take him, you know, and he would say those words. And before I knew any better, I just thought, oh my gosh, this child's going to die. You know, I was young still. So I was still in that framework of not understanding death and not understanding epilepsy to how I know it now. So with that question being channeled without permission, my son would have felt that he's been channeled, but because he doesn't know what's happening or where he's going, or they might have just wanted to give him a message. It might have just been an energy force for him to experience. But because, again, the lack of education around epilepsy, remember that if there's all fair going on, we're not even getting the proper education about so-called epilepsy. So because of that, it was just fair. And to tell you the truth, I was fearful as well at that time. And two, I knew better. And with my son now, he doesn't get those seizures. He's still on medication at the moment, and his last seizure was last year. And that is because he naturally is still fearful. So he's working with that. And I do work with him, but that's his journey. He has to be able to work with that fear himself. I can't be telling him or getting him to not be fearful. We can discuss it. You know, I can give him energy work and stuff, but he's going to have to want to understand that energy within himself, which he's getting there now. So he doesn't have those full-blown energies of someone pulling him anymore. So he's really starting to slowly not come out of it, but become one with it. And this is where we can shift energy, where seizures don't have to be no longer when you can shift energy. Or, you know, so it's not about wanting it to go. It's about connecting with it for the energy to be able to change form. And he's understanding that now, you know, but it's taking him to now, but it's never too late because everything in our own time. But I knew that I couldn't save him when it comes to that. We can speak, we can do things, and when he's ready, we can do things out. But I wasn't there to say, you know what, I'm going to try to save him or even heal him, because that's his contract. And he has to be able to go through that. So I had to learn to understand that that's his contract, which I did, and know that, allow him to be free, to find his way, you know. And again, I'm sure you would agree with this, with our parents and even family, that the fear that they have on us, it just goes on to us, you know. And
I think for
we
me,
have to take on their fear.
When I was younger, there was a lot more fear involved because I was younger. But as I've grown and paid more attention to it, you know, because when I was younger, I wasn't paying any attention to epilepsy whatsoever. It was just happening, and the people around me were left to deal with it. I wasn't responsible for myself. I wasn't responsible for my condition. It was more about your fault. If you didn't break up, I wouldn't be even having these fits right now, you know? So I did a lot of blaming because I wasn't mature enough to understand my own self, knowing thyself, knowing thy body, knowing thy spirit, knowing that I'm not only a part of a human family, I'm a part of a soul family. I'm a part of a spiritual family as well. And sometimes, for me anyway, I feel that my soul family and my spiritual family from other realms and dimensions are trying to connect with me. And the more I resist that, the harder it's going to be on this earth plane for me to deal with my realities here. So as I grew and as I got older, I shifted, as we're talking about shifting, I shifted the blame or the responsibility from parents to myself and said, well, you know, at the end of the day, I'm the one living with this condition. They're not. They're having to pick up the pieces afterwards. They have to pick up the pieces afterwards. So now I have to become more responsible for my own life skills, being responsible for life. And that's when I started to take my inner journey into my inner being and my inner self and slightly detach myself from the blood family, so to speak, in this reality, and go a little bit further into my DNA and my genetics and my ancestry, so I could connect with probably older beings that could explain it to me in a better way. And what they did connected me with people in this realm that understood my epilepsy from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. And I connect with that wholly. When you say about not taking responsibility, it took me years to take responsibility. I used to go, when I was younger, go partying, have a seizure, get back up, and wanted to go back partying. And I've just had a seizure, and the ambulance had to come in the party.
Yeah, and carry us out.
And, you know, so I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to have this condition. I did not want to live with it. I didn't want to have it. And I do think it was a connection of, if you don't have people around you that can support what you're going through and communicate it with you, if they don't know, obviously they can't communicate something that they don't know, you know. But if you don't have that, like for instance, my son has that. So I know that because he's had something that I've had, his journey's been completely different. He still went through his fear, and that's his thing. But I was able to sit down with him, speak to him, and his adult life, young adult life, I was able to change the energy shift by, if a seizure's coming and I'm around, I can just give him some energy on his head, and that's what I would do. And the seizures wouldn't even come. It would just disappear, and the energy would change. And I would say to him, and he knows this even now, I said to him, this is something you can do to yourself. Mm-hmm. We all can heal self, you know, and if you take away the fear factor of it, then you'll be able to do that one day when you're ready, and if you're ready, you know. So for me, I had to take responsibility, and this is where I realized that it was stress, and I said, I have to do something about it. I have to change the whole of my life. And you know, Amunet, that didn't come quickly. That took years. It took its time. It wasn't straight away. I had to sort out relationships with, you know, men, and knowing which one to go for, because I can't take arguments, or I can't afford to be. And that took time. I mean, it took years and years and years to be where I'm at now, you know. But it really was, looking back, such a fantastic journey, because it's made who I am, and it's made you who you are. And we have to give thanks, because we had each other.
We do.
From like our late teens. So we didn't see each other from when we was younger. We our family didn't see each other as much.
Yeah, our family didn't see each other. So we kind of disconnected, and then we met back up at the right time.
Yeah, and we had each other with this. So that was really, really nice to have somebody else to say, I have them too.
We didn't just have the condition, we had the spiritual experiences that were similar, that we could actually talk about to someone that was experiencing a similar thing. So we weren't alone in that. It wasn't just like, oh my gosh, we've got epilepsy, this is what happens. It was where do we go when we have this? What happens when you have the epilepsy? And then it became the thing of like, well, I went here and I traveled there and I got this information, and I came back and, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Do you remember when we embraced the epilepsy after lots of years? We got to the level where we could sit down and say, wow, you know, I had the seizure, but this is what came from it. This is what I learned from it. This is what I can share from it, the beauty of it, the spirituality of it. I remember that was really vital in the healing.
Do you remember when we got there? When did we get to that spiritual place with regards to epilepsy? I can't remember, because I don't remember reading books.
I think it was a lot of it was to do with the church journey, because we started going church together at that time. When we got on the healing journey and we reconnected, we started to go to church together. So the church brought us into a spiritual journey. It kind of like initiated us into like the light of consciousness, like the Christ consciousness. consciousness, which was, you know, a totally different thing. It wasn't like doctrine. It wasn't Bible. It was the spirit. So we became really deeply connected to the spiritual essence of religion. And I think that's what really like pushed that journey forward into us knowing ourselves more on a spirit level.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
what I can remember. That's what I can remember at that time.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's go on to the next question. So this is about triggers. So what triggers people that has epilepsy? What's the triggers? There's so many different triggers. There could be lack of sleep, sensory triggers, food, stress, like I told you, lights, television, flashing lights, mood, the time of the month can trigger, even alcohol. I know people that's, you know, alcoholic and they drink so much they ended up having seizures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So alcohol can bring it on as well. So these are some of the triggers. Do you know any more that you can add to that?
Medication can trigger seizures. The time of the month, your menstrual cycle can trigger seizures. Excitement, for me, if I get too excited, I can have a seizure. A sexual experience can trigger a seizure. And then I think it fluctuates between a high vibration and a really low vibration. And for me, that determines the kind of seizure I'm going to have. So if my vibration and my frequency gets too low, I can have a really violent, aggressive seizure because my vibration's lowered. And then I can get too hyper, too happy, too excited. And then I'll have like a really drifty experience for hours and hours into a beautiful place because I haven't got the grounded balance. I think it's the triggers are a lot to do with, for me, not so much the type of seizure, but the balance that I have in the moment. So if I get too high or if I get too low, it can trigger some kind of disturbance in my brain chemistry.
Yeah.
How about I love you? That. Is it the same for you? If you get too low, you get too high, or?
No, mine's completely different. Mine, it's different in a way that I don't identify it in that way. So it doesn't mean it's different, but I don't identify it in that way. I think for me, because it comes under stress, stress can be high or low, can't it? So with me, my son has that one. If he gets too excited, he could have a seizure. I don't have those ones. I never had those ones. But my stress levels now, it depends on my stress level. So something can happen in my life. For instance, when my son got stabbed, that was a constant, a quick stress. And my stress shows itself before the seizure by maybe losing weight. So it doesn't come straight away. So I can lose weight within a second. I mean days. I mean like 48 hours, 24 hours. I've lost weight because of stress, just like that. And I'm eating. So I'm still eating. That's how it shows. And then from there, that can cause certain forms of seizures. So lack of sleep can, to a certain degree, but it depends on why I'm having lack of sleep. So if that lack of sleep's doing because of a breakup, how it used to be my older days, like breakup of a relationship and I'm not sleeping because obviously we're not getting on and what's going on and you're worried about the breakup.
Overthinking.
So it's all to do with the brain again. So that could bring on a seizure as well. So mine wasn't an up and down one, or if I'm happy or not happy. Mine was always around this word called stress, always around. And I knew it because I know when I'm feeling a form of worry, because my brain can't switch off because I'm thinking about it all the time. And my brain can't switch off. So even though I'm eating, my energy levels of stress is just burning out. So I'm losing weight and everything. So that's my one when it comes to that. But my son's one is food. If he's not nutritioned, his one's lack of sleep, definitely. And he gets belly aches that's a trigger. And before a seizure for my son, he would see like deja vus. So he would say, oh, I've been here before, I've seen this, or I've seen that. But I mean, constant. And then he could have a seizure. Another trigger for some people, it hasn't happened to me, I don't know if it's happened to you, Amunet, but is behavior. So some trigger could be they start swearing and having things like Tourette's, where they're swearing and their behavior, their words all over the place, and you don't understand what they're saying. And that can be a trigger before the actual seizure comes. So usually there's always some form of trigger somewhere going on, even if it's subtle or not subtle.
With that, I would say, I would go back to that whole being channeled without permission, because when people start to behave out of their character, you don't know them anymore. You're like, who is that? Why are they behaving like that? That's a bit crazy. It's like an entity or a spirit energy has entered into their body or their system at that moment, and they're unknowing. And if the people around are unknowing as well, you don't know what to do to calm that down. You know, you don't know what to do. So I would always say, like, you know, with the seizures, because I know that with the tonic clonics, when they come in, I don't have them anymore. I haven't for many, many years now. But I know that when they were coming, that would happen. My behavior would be really erratic and just irrational. And it would be because I could feel a spirit energy entering my body, but I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't know, actually. It's not that I couldn't do. I didn't know what to do about it. There was no doctor saying, well, you can go and meditate, or you can go and do a prayer, or you can go and do a ritual, and that's going to help you. You can do these grounding things. That wasn't around, and it's still not around. It's still not at all. Just quickly, because time's going and finding its way to 9 o'clock. But what I wanted to ask was the medication part. How can that cause an effect on our everyday life, taking medication for long periods of time? Medications, I mean, for every medication you take for any condition, not just epilepsy, there's side effects. And what medications do is they actually suppress symptoms. They don't get rid of the condition that you're living with. It doesn't go away. It just makes it manageable. It makes it copable sometimes, you know. I went through maybe 15 years of trying different medications just to get the convulsions under control. And I can honestly say none of the medications helped me to get the epilepsy, tonic, clonic convulsions under control. The thing that helped for that was peace, meditation, and my inner journey, and finding my own tools to help my brain in my way to relax and be grounded in this reality. So I'm not anti-medication, especially when it comes to epilepsy, because I take medication even now for work purposes. So I think it's a case of finding the right medications for yourself. Like what doctors or consultants do is, if you have a certain type of meditation, epilepsy, they will go for the medication that they think is suitable for that type of epilepsy syndrome. That doesn't always work. And if you don't speak up and say, this is not working for me, the side effects could be much more worse than the actual condition, and cause more seizures and other things. And other problems later on down.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's go on to the next one, which is rest and recovery. What's the best way that people that's listening, people that do have epilepsy, people that's recovering from having long-term epilepsy, what is the best way for them to recover and rest? What can they do? What sort of things that can they put in place, which is natural, that's aside from the medication? Like detox, essential oils, moving the elements, meditation, you know.
Yeah, all those beautiful things that like connect you to the natural earth, to connect you, to ground you to reality, you know, because with epilepsy, it can be a really drifty euphoric experience where you're just not here for long periods of time. You know, even when you recover from having a seizure, you're still not here for long periods of time. It takes a while to recognize your surroundings, people, who you are, what you're doing here. That could take sometimes even days or weeks, depending on the level of the seizure you've experienced and what's going on in your brain at the time. So I would say, you know, grounding is really important. Drinking lots of water is vital to your life force energy anyway. You know what I mean? Drink lots of water, relax. Just, you know, when you've gone through that experience and you've come back and you're still confused, you're disorientated, don't think about anything apart from your own rest and what you need to do to feel yourself again. Because when you have that experience, you don't feel like yourself for a very long time, you know, a long time. And it takes a lot to get yourself back all together.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do one more before I've got the what's it called? The questions from my group. So let's go to the last one, which is we've answered it really, self-management and interventions. So what we didn't put into that, what you've just said, was exercises as well, you know, like Tibetan 5 rites and yoga and Pilates and any form of exercises really, to be able to balance back out the energy. And that's with all of us, without conditions or without everything that we're going through, you know. But to be able to, what I will add to that as well is to find ways that works for you to be able to feeding your brain. And that could be things that you're eating, nutrition stuff, and it might be things that you don't even like, but you know that your brain likes it. And sometimes we have to listen to our body and not to our ego that thinks, well, I just want that because I like it. It's like, okay, let's see what the body wants. Let's give the body a chance to have a say. Because us as humans, we don't do that as much. You know, we don't really say, let me listen to the body and give the body, you know, like we do now. But I'm saying, like, when we was younger, we didn't do that. And a lot of people now don't do that. You know, they just eat what they like. And that's a difference of eating what you like or eating because of a habit, because it's become a habit, and listening to your body. Our body changes constantly. It's energy. It's not going to stay the same as when we was 5, 10, 20, 30, and we're getting older, 40s now, you know. So we have to be able to ask our body where we are now. Okay, you know, what does it need? Even if we're adding to what we like, but to not even look at our body and ask our body, especially to do with our mindset, you know. And so I would say that's something to look out for anyone that does have epilepsy. Really go within and see what your body's wanting. And by doing that, sometimes it's just by trying and error, you know, trying something to eat and knowing that you might not even like the taste, but it's made you feel good and it's made you feel calm. And it's made your brain feel calm. You're like, wow, I didn't realize that this is what food can do. Because food is such a nutrition energy. It's there to give us energy. It's not even really there for us to like, to be honest.
Also, I don't think a lot of people know that you can feed your brain. You know, there's certain foods that are very good for your brain, and there's certain supplements you can take that are very good for the brain alone. So if you're living with like a brain condition or, you know, something that affects your neurology, research that. Try, as you say, try different things, see what foods and drinks and supplements work for your brain. You have to give it a bit of time, of course, because it has to settle into your system. But once it does, you will feel a difference, or you won't feel a difference. At least you would have tried it. Because I know if I only stuck to medications, I might not even be here today. I probably would have been gone. I would have transitioned from the planet.
Yeah, I would have transitioned a long time.
Transitioned from the planet. And we know we've had enough death experiences. I'm not going to say near death because you can't use near deaths. But we've had enough dyings or deaths to know that we didn't pay attention to the brain and what it needs to survive on this planet the way it works. We could have been gone. So don't be afraid to try new things, and you can always, there's someone you can always reach out to. We're here now, so you know, you can reach out to us and ask, you know, if there's any recommendations we can give people. And that's one more thing that I wanted to add to that with rest and recovery is that, you know, for me, I know that there's been times when my brain has been terribly overwhelmed, like just overwhelmed with just life experiences, just living in this 3D reality on planet, the way that life is living here, the way that life is being played out. And I know there's been times when I've done immense, very intense prayers and rituals, and I've gone to bed and I have felt my soul family come in and my spiritual family, my off-planet family come in and do work on my brain and helped with certain DNA strands in my brain that have been deeply like traumatized, and they need rewiring somehow. They need an activation. And I felt that activity, and I've seen it and I felt it and I've heard it go on. So when you get to a certain level of knowing yourself in your journey with any kind of affliction you're living with, there are other beings that are available for your help, you know, for your recovery.
That is so true. And they're part of your family, they're part of our family, if we choose to be awake to that, and if we choose to see it for what it is and hear it for what it is. I know that even just a couple of months ago, the beings, when I went to their dimension, they were still doing work on my brain. So obviously I still needed work done. And this was months ago. You know, and I don't have seizures no more or anything to do with that. But it's not just about that. It's about the whole of our body system, how it functions, when it gets tired, when it needs to be re-energized, when it needs to change form, and they want us to know that it needs to change form, but we're not looking at that, or we're not ready for that. And they need to wake us up somehow for that to happen. So all this all links together. And if we take away the epilepsy, and take away the seizures that we're talking about, it's, as you said, it's life in general. Because our spirit is in our body form for a reason, but that needs to be activated. It needs to be able to be energized, and our oxygen has to be kept to a certain level for us to function in a way that we need to function to complete our contract. And it's just for us to remember that, really. Do you know what I mean? So excellente. Okay, let's go to this. Time's gone on, but we've still got people online. We've still got people online. We'll keep going for a little bit longer. So these are the questions. I have a group that I have in the week, and I always like to try and ask them questions now if they're interested in the Wednesday show, if they've got any questions. So we've got 4 here. It might be questions that we've already answered. I don't know. Oh, this is a good one. Can having epilepsy affect an intimate relationship? Can it cause an effect on our relationship? That is fantastic. I like that one. Wow. Do you want to go first?
I'll let you go first on this one. You can go first on this one.
For me, yes, that's definitely yes. And my past relationships was a fact. Like, for my past relationships, they just didn't get it, to tell you the truth. They didn't understand. My oldest son's father, obviously I met him as a teenager, so he was there at the core of my seizures, and he didn't know how to handle it. To say the truth, I didn't know either, so I'm not blaming anyone here. You know, there's no blaming here, but it caused an effect on our relationship for the fact that when you don't understand something, and epilepsy is not just about when you have the seizure. No. You have memory problems. You forget things.
You have speech problems.
your
Memory.
pronunciation
Yeah.
of words, your
Yeah.
memory.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have energy to be active, to actually
Yeah.
do things and to have an active relationship in the relationship, you know, because you're tired all the time, because depending on how many seizures you have, it drains you.
Yeah.
And you need to take your time to get back that energy field in your body. So I've got, for the younger part of my journey, nearly no one really understood epilepsy, and it did cause an effect. And I tried to hide it a lot. I would say that I had it in, like, when I was going out with them, but it wasn't part of the relationship. I tried to just disregard it, not speak about it, and obviously it happened. And then we had to deal with it, and then it would go under the carpet again. Let's not deal with it. And if we speak about relationships on a broader level, even with work, I was so embarrassed, and I was like, I don't think no one's going to take me on if I'm having seizures or if I'm epileptic. So a lot of my work experiences when I was younger, I never told them. I actually did not tell them I had epilepsy, and I just really prayed that I never had a seizure at work for anyone to know, because I was had so lack of confidence to feel that they would be like, oh, that's okay, come on, you know, that will be okay, because no one really spoke about it. It wasn't spoken about. I didn't have the confidence that people understood it, because I didn't understand it. So it was kept quiet and hidden, and I just didn't say anything. So that question for me was a definite yes. It does cause an effect. However, today, if you get to know the information and really knowing self, get to know your body, get to know how your body works, because the hospitals and the consultancy ain't going to tell you that part. So unless you've got people around you that's on that level, you're not going to know. You know, and that's why it's so important for us to do a show like this and talking about the spiritual side and not the medical side that people already know. Very, very important, because if you don't get that support, you're just keeping it inside and you don't even know what's going on. So that's my answer to that one. Do you want to answer it?
Well, mine is pretty much the same, really. I think the only difference in experience that I can share is that when I was younger in relationships, because I didn't know myself, I couldn't expect anybody else to know myself. Do you know what I mean? So when I was trying to describe my epilepsy symptoms and my seizures, they weren't really showing themselves physically. It was more internal. And as you said, I kept it very hidden. So if I was experiencing epilepsy symptoms, I would go and hide away somewhere in another room or something. It would never be seen. So I think my partners in my younger days never really experienced me having a seizure, because I never let it be shown. I would always come home and have a seizure. If I was feeling really ill, I'd be with my mum. She knows seizures. She knows what to do. So it was more of a embarrassment. But then as I got older and my partners changed, my partner's energies changed, where they were more, so they were more understanding because they were more spiritual. My partners became more spiritual as I grew and became spiritual. So they had a different type of understanding of what a seizure was. It wasn't like, oh, you have seizures, it's a terrible brain thing. It was like, you have seizures, you're really special. Oh my gosh. It was more like that. Like, oh my gosh, I know about you. I've studied you already before you've even come. Wow. You know, so that was different. But still, in saying that, I still kept part of it hidden, because I just didn't want to express. It wasn't time to express that side of my being openly, how I can do now today. And in the past 10 years with my partners, I've been able to say, I'm epileptic, this is me, this is what happens. I have seizures, I drift off to other places, I come back. You can either, you know, you're going to deal with that or you're not. Luckily, they've been able to deal, and the family around me as well now, they just know. They know what it's about. They get it straight away. And the work that I do now incorporates my epilepsy, because I think when I was younger, I was trying to build epilepsy around a life. But now my life is built around epilepsy. It's incorporated, it's become one.
Yeah, yeah. And it's become one because we have such a strong understanding and knowing that it's another form of energy. It's another form of energy that's within inside of us, and it's here for a reason, and we've chose it. So myself, even though I don't have seizures no more and I'm not in medication, I still talk about epilepsy. You know, I would say I'm epileptic, I'm on the spectrum, I'm dyslexic. I say all the labels, and I'm proud to say it now. And I think I'm proud to say it. Forget about government and putting labels on us. It's because of where I've come from. And to have certain experiences like epilepsy and being such afraid of it and needing to be hidden, and now we can embrace it and we can understand it and we can embrace that energy and understand about different forms of energy. I celebrate that now, you know, so I'm still talking about it, and I love it. And I love that, you know, I'm epileptic and I just don't have seizures no more because I've changed my lifestyle. But the energy's within me. Yeah. Okay, let's do one more, then we're going to get ready to go, guys. This is going to be the last one. Can epilepsy run in the family? Is it genetic?
My niece has it. One of my nieces has epilepsy. One of my younger nieces, she has epilepsy. But again, you see, she hasn't been diagnosed. She's had more than 1 or 2 seizures, but on her brain scan, it hasn't showed up as abnormalities on her brain scan. So they haven't diagnosed her, but I'm so blessed and happy and pleased because her parents have chosen an alternative route to medication because they know what I've been through with my medication journey and the side effects that it's caused, which we didn't go into today, but we will another time. So they have kept her on, and it's good because now in this day and age, we're living in a time where we have access to more alternative therapies. Like now, we're allowed legally to use CBD oil. It's a controlled substance that you can actually use for your neurological conditions. We didn't know that in our days. That didn't exist. Just medication or nothing. That was it. So she has seizures. She takes her CBD oil every day. She has absent seizures. She's fully aware when she has that. So yeah, to answer that question, it can run in the family. I don't know whether it's genetically induced, but she does have seizures that are undiagnosed.
Yeah. I was told, obviously my son has it, and I was told that it is genetic, and we was going to do the test. There's a genetic test that you can do, and we was going to do it. And then we looked at each other. This was years ago. And my son was like, Mum, why would we do this when I've got it, you've got it, we know we both got it. Does it matter if it's in the genes or not? It probably is, but we have it anyway. Should we just, why do we need to do it? And I said, well, it's up to you. Do you want to do it? And he said, no, we don't need to do that. We know we both have it, you know. And I think in this lifetime with our contract, me, my son, it's been such a comfort that I have it as well. You know, not that he likes it. Obviously, he doesn't like having seizures, but he likes the fact, because he had his seizures from 2, and he's going to be 21 in a couple of weeks. So he's had it for so many years. But the fact that we could sit down and we can speak, you know, and I can say, yep, that's because of this. Yep, remember, because I had it, and we can just reason with each other. It really comforted him with his journey with epilepsy. And for that alone, I thought, I'm glad I have it, you know, because if I can be there for my son and we can go through this together, let's do it. And that really started to bring my love for the energy of epilepsy, you know. So, yeah, what a great night.
I think that's the beautiful thing about Jordan, because Jordan has grown in a spiritual environment where when it comes to his epilepsy, the people that have been around him when it comes to the epilepsy has given him a different perspective on how to heal, how to, you know, meditate, how to ground yourself, how to deal with it. You don't have to be fearful, George. You've got it. It's here. and this is how we deal with it. It's okay. And I've done the same thing with Sienna, with my little niece, because she just like, oh, auntie, you know, I go off into these little forests or these little gardens, and I'm like, it's lovely there, you know, go into a little garden if you need be, and come back and we're all here, and it's fine. So I really feel like we're moving into a time on the planet right now where there's an opening for alternative ways to deal with serious neurological conditions like epilepsy, not taking away the medicine that's needed to bring balance to the brain sometimes if need be, but it's not a necessity, and there are other means that we can proceed with it if we're open to another perspective.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. Guys, what a lovely show. Yeah, this was a passion of mine.
I've been wanting to do this. I'm tired.
I've been wanting to do this for such a long time. I mean, years with Amunet, years. And it just needed to be the right energy and the right time. If anyone knows Amunet, you know, she's like a fairy. So she's like, you know, you have to be, the energy has to really be in the same alignment. You know, so I've been waiting patiently for this time.
You've done well.
I know, and I'm glad it was able to happen. I'm just going to go through some of the comments before we go, guys. Thank you for staying on. So we've got Amunet here, and Amunet says, so enlightened how spiritual crosses over the brain conditions. I can put it up here, actually. So enlightened in how spirituality crosses over the brain conditions and electronical seizures. As to me, this is all about chi and prana. I feel that the diagnosis may be useful to ground our multi-dimensionality if we recognized in a supportive and nurturing way with the right support.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
We've got Hotep here that says excellent information and information. Definitely. Then we've got Angelina Ray. Lovely session, ladies. Thank you for spreading awareness on this topic. Very interesting and informative.
Angelina.
Then we've got Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa. She says, wow, absolutely insightful. Thanks, ladies. So, guys, that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, this week, Saturday, we've got the lovely Angelina Ray doing her psychic and mediumship show on a Saturday on this higher self development, 8 p.m. And I think she's doing Wednesdays now, so I'm going to have a little break because we can see there's so many Wednesdays now. Angelina Ray is going to be doing from next week, Wednesday. I think she's going to do next week, and we might come back on together the week after. But I'm going to have a little break on a Wednesday, and I can just chill and tune in. And we'll take it from there. So, guys, thank you so much. And until next week, I'm sending you a lot of love and peace. And until next time, take care. See you later, guys. Bye. Stay on, and Lynette, stay on. Okay, see you later, guys.